When people hear the phrase Pope Francis mansion, they imagine grand halls, golden ceilings, and endless luxury. But the truth? It's nothing like that. Unlike the popes before him who lived in the Grand Apostolic Palace, Pope Francis made a surprising choice. He refused to live in luxury. Instead, he chose a modest residence, Casa Santa Marta, a simple guest house inside the Vatican walls. A decision that shocked many at the time. Why would the most powerful religious leader in the world turn his back on centuries of tradition? Was it just humility? Or something more? Pope Francis was known for saying, "How I would love a church that is poor and for the poor." His choice of living quarters became a symbol of that belief. No fancy apartments, no royal treatment, just a simple room like any other guest. But here's where the story takes a strange turn. After his passing, Vatican officials quickly sealed off his residence. A place once open and humble was now locked tight. No explanations, no visitors, even high-ranking clergy were turned away. Why? What was inside those walls that needed such protection? Was it just routine protocol? Or were they hiding something that could shake the very foundation of the church? This wasn't just about where Pope Francis slept. It was about what he left behind. And as whispers began to spread, people started to wonder, was his simple lifestyle a cover for something far bigger? Let's step deeper into the mystery. Because Pope Francis' life of simplicity might not have been as straightforward as it seemed. A life of simplicity. Or so we thought. Pope Francis earned the nickname the People's Pope for a reason. From the moment he stepped onto the world stage, he made it clear. He wasn't like the popes before him. No lavish ceremonies, no golden thrones, just a man of faith walking among the people. But behind this image of modesty, was there something more? Was his simple lifestyle also a quiet strategy? For years, his choice to live humbly was seen as a reflection of his mission. To reform the church. To bring it closer to the poor and the marginalized. His residence at Casa Santa Marta wasn't just a place to sleep. It was a statement. Yet now, with his passing and the sudden sealing of his quarters, many are starting to question what was really happening behind those closed doors. Some Vatican insiders suggest that Pope Francis used his quiet, modest surroundings as a safe haven. A place where plans were made, letters were written, and secrets were kept away from the prying eyes of those resistant to his reforms. As one source hinted, he lived simply, but his thoughts were anything but small. Could it be that the walls of Casa Santa Marta held more than just a pope's belongings? Could they contain the blueprint of a church transformed? The world was about to find out that this wasn't just about a humble room. It was about what that room was hiding. And when Vatican officials sealed it, they weren't just protecting memories. They were guarding something far more powerful. So, was this just tradition? Or was the Vatican racing to secure secrets that could change everything? Let's uncover what really happens when a pope's residence is locked down and why this time it felt different. Vatican protocol or something more. When a pope passes away, certain rituals must be followed. One of them is sealing his residence. It's a tradition meant to protect personal items, letters, and official documents until they're reviewed. But this time, something felt off. Normally, this process is quiet, almost routine. But when Vatican guards sealed off Pope Francis' quarters, whispers began to spread through Rome. People started asking, why the urgency? Why the secrecy? Reports began to surface, claims of confidential documents, personal writings, and even a list of names hidden inside. Some say these weren't just any papers. They were plans, radical reforms that Pope Francis never got the chance to reveal publicly. As one Vatican official reportedly said, what's in there isn't just history. It's the future of the church. And then came the rumors that truly caught attention. Documents pointing to a succession plan, ideas for reshaping the church, and bold steps that some in the Vatican might not have wanted to see the light of day. Why were even senior cardinals denied access? What was so sensitive that the Vatican acted faster than usual? The sealing of Pope Francis' residence wasn't just protocol. It felt like a race against time to control information that could spark global debates or even division within the church. But amidst all these whispers, one name kept surfacing again and again, a name tied to these secret plans. Luis Antonio Tagli. So, what exactly did Pope Francis leave behind? And why? Does Tagli's name appear at the center of it all? Let's dive into the heart of the mystery, because hidden within those walls may be a blueprint that could change the church forever. A blueprint for the future? When Vatican officials sealed Pope Francis' modest residence, few expected what would come next. Rumors of hidden documents. But these weren't ordinary papers or personal notes. No, according to insiders, what they found was nothing less than a blueprint, a plan that could reshape the Catholic Church forever. Leaked whispers spoke of personal letters carefully written by Pope Francis himself, letters that outlined ideas far more radical than anything he had announced publicly. Strategies for reform, detailed visions of a more inclusive church, and perhaps most shocking of all, a list of successors he believed could carry his mission forward. Popes aren't supposed to name their successors. It's against tradition. But Francis was never a man bound by convention. He knew the resistance he faced. He knew that change wouldn't survive without someone bold enough to continue it. As one Vatican source quietly remarked, Francis didn't just hope for change, he planned it. And within those plans, one name appeared over and over again: Luis Antonio Tagle. It's said that these documents didn't just mention Tagle in passing. They positioned him at the center of a future church, one built on compassion, equality, and modern relevance. If these reports are true, Pope Francis wasn't leaving his legacy to chance. He was guiding it from beyond the grave. But this discovery raises even more questions. Why were these documents hidden? Were they meant to be revealed in time? Or were they kept secret to avoid immediate backlash from conservative factions within the Vatican? And if Tagle really was part of this secret vision, what does that mean for the Church's next chapter? One thing was clear. These weren't just papers. They were a silent revolution waiting for the right moment to ignite. But who exactly is the man at the heart of this hidden plan? Why did Pope Francis place so much trust in him? Let's turn the spotlight onto the quiet figure standing in the shadows. Luis Antonio Tagle. The protégé in the shadows. For years, Luis Antonio Tagle walked the halls of the Vatican without drawing too much attention. Humble, soft-spoken, and deeply connected to the people. He was never one to seek the spotlight. But someone noticed him. Someone who mattered. Pope Francis. Tagle's journey from the busy streets of Manila to becoming one of the most trusted figures in the Vatican wasn't by accident. It was the result of shared values, quiet conversations, and a bond built on a mutual vision for a church that serves, not rules. Many called him the Asian Francis, a nickname that spoke volumes. Like Pope Francis, Tagle believed in humility over hierarchy, compassion over control. And behind closed doors, the two reportedly held countless private meetings discussing not just the present, but the future. As one insider revealed, Francis saw in Tagle not just a cardinal, but a continuation of his dream. Over time, Tagle was entrusted with sensitive missions, global outreach, and reforms that aligned perfectly with Francis' ideals. It became clear to those watching closely. Tagle wasn't just another church leader. He was being prepared. But prepared for what? Now, with the discovery of those hidden documents, the picture becomes clearer. Tagle wasn't just a trusted advisor. He was possibly the chosen one to carry forward a quiet revolution. Yet, Tagle never spoke of ambition. He never hinted at higher aspirations. That's what made him even more compelling in the eyes of Pope Francis, a leader who didn't seek power but was called to serve. But was this secret mentorship part of a bigger, carefully orchestrated plan? As the world begins to connect the dots, another question emerges. Did Pope Francis, knowing his time was limited, design a succession strategy that would outlive him? Let's explore how this bond between Pope and protégé could reveal a decision that's been years in the making. The unseen succession plan. Popes aren't supposed to choose who comes after them. It's a rule as old as the Church itself. But if anyone could quietly influence the future without breaking tradition, it was Pope Francis. For years, Francis hinted at retirement, spoke openly about his health struggles, and made subtle moves that now seem far more deliberate. He wasn't just preparing to step down. He was preparing the Church for what would come next. Behind the scenes, many believe he was crafting an unseen succession plan, not through official declarations, but through trust, mentorship, and positioning key figures like Luis Antonio Tagle exactly where they needed to be. As one Vatican analyst put it, Francis didn't leave the future to chance. He planted seeds, and Tagle was the strongest one. The sudden sealing of Pope Francis' residence now takes on a different meaning. Was it really about preserving personal belongings? Or was it about protecting sensitive plans that could reveal just how carefully Francis had shaped the path ahead? If these hidden documents confirmed that Tagle was at the center of this strategy, it could explain everything. The private meetings, the rapid rise of Tagle within Vatican ranks, and the urgency to secure Francis' quarters after his passing. But such a plan wouldn't come without risks. Powerful factions within the Church would do anything to keep control, and a successor like Tagle, known for progressive values, would threaten the old guard. Could this be why the Vatican moved so swiftly? to manage how and when these revelations would come to light. Now, the world watches and waits. Was Pope Francis' quiet strategy enough to ensure his vision survives? Or will resistance from within bury his plans alongside him? One thing is clear. If Tagle truly is the Pope's chosen successor, then his mission is far greater than anyone imagined. But what exactly is that mission? And is it reform, revolution, or a dangerous risk? Let's uncover what Tagle is really being asked to finish. Reform, revolution, or risk? If the whispers coming from behind Vatican walls are true, if Luis Antonio Tagle really is at the center of Pope Francis' secret plan, then he's not just stepping into a new chapter of leadership. He's stepping onto a tightrope stretched between history and the future, and there's no safety net below. Tagle's reputation has always been one of quiet strength and deep compassion. From his early days in the Philippines, he was known as the cardinal who listened when others preached. He walked among the poor, stood with refugees, and spoke for those the world, and sometimes the Church, forgot. In many ways, Tagle is the human face of what Pope Francis spent years fighting for. A church that opens its doors wider, that chooses mercy over judgment, and that dares to care more than it commands. But now the stakes are higher than ever. With reports of hidden documents found in Pope Francis' sealed residence, documents said to outline a bold vision for reform, Tagle faces a challenge far greater than charity work or pastoral care. This is no longer about kindness alone. It's about confronting centuries of tradition, unspoken rules, and powerful figures who believe the Church should remain exactly as it is. As one Vatican observer sharply noted, Tagle isn't being asked to lead. He's being asked to finish what Francis started, and that's a dangerous path, because every move toward reform comes with a cost. If Tagle pushes for greater inclusion, whether for marginalized communities, women, or interfaith dialogue, he risks provoking backlash from those who see such steps as betrayal, not progress. For every person who praises his vision, there will be another ready to accuse him of weakening the Church's foundations. And let's not forget, the Vatican is a place where power isn't always loud. It's quiet, calculated, and deeply entrenched. Tagle would be walking into a battlefield where smiles hide resistance, and tradition is wielded like a weapon. So what exactly is this mission? Is it simply reform? A gentle evolution of the Church's role in modern society? Or is it something far more daring? A silent revolution, hidden behind the language of compassion, but destined to upend structures that have stood for over 2 millennia? Either way, it's a risk few would dare to take. But for Tagle, backed by Pope Francis' trust, and perhaps bound by his final wish, stepping away may no longer be an option. This is no longer about personal choice. It's about responsibility, one that could define the future of the Catholic Church. But make no mistake, not everyone is standing behind Tagle, ready to support this vision. In fact, while the world watches with hope, forces within the Vatican are already preparing their defense. Because where there's talk of revolution, there's always resistance. Let's pull back the curtain and examine the silent opposition growing within the heart of Rome, a force determined to stop Tagle before he even begins. The Vatican's silent resistance. For every voice calling for progress, there's always a quieter, more calculated voice whispering, "Not so fast." Inside the ancient walls of the Vatican, those whispers aren't just opinions. They're power plays, and often those whispers echo louder than public applause. Throughout his papacy, Pope Francis wasn't just leading prayers. He was fighting battles. But these weren't battles fought in the open. No, they were silent wars waged in private meetings, behind closed doors, and in centuries-old corridors where tradition holds more weight than vision. His push for a more compassionate, inclusive church was celebrated by millions around the world. But within the Vatican, conservative factions viewed every step of reform as a threat, not just to doctrine, but to the very structures of control they had upheld for generations. Now, with Pope Francis gone, those same factions see an opportunity, not to mourn, but to reclaim what they believe was slipping away. And standing directly in their path, Luis Antonio Tagle. To many, Tagle is a beacon of hope. But to those clinging to the old ways, he represents something far more dangerous, the living embodiment of Francis' unfinished revolution. As one Vatican insider reportedly warned, a Tagle era would undo centuries of control. That's not fear of change. It's fear of losing power. Could this explain why the Vatican moved so quickly to seal Pope Francis' residence? Was it truly about safeguarding a legacy? Or was it a strategic move to contain the boldest parts of his vision? Plans that, if revealed, could force the Church into a future some are desperate to avoid? There's a quiet battle unfolding, one that most Catholics around the world will never witness. It's not fought with public declarations, but with silence, delays, and behind-the-scenes maneuvering. A battle between those who believe the Church must evolve to survive and those who believe survival depends on keeping everything exactly as it's always been. And whether he asked for it or not, Tagle now stands at the heart of this conflict. Every decision he makes, every word he speaks or doesn't will be scrutinized by those waiting for a chance to undermine him. Silent resistance is often the most dangerous kind, because you don't see it coming until it's too late. The real question now is, can Tagle overcome this invisible wall of opposition? Or will these hidden forces succeed in locking away Pope Francis' most daring plans, ensuring they never see daylight? But this isn't just about Vatican politics. The consequences of this internal struggle will ripple far beyond Rome's borders. The future of over 1 billion Catholics and the Church's role in global issues like human rights, poverty, and climate action could all hinge on who wins this silent war. So what happens if Tagle pushes forward despite the resistance? Could the secrets sealed within Pope Francis' mansion spark a transformation that reaches every corner of the world? Let's explore how these hidden truths could ignite a new era for the Catholic Church, and why the world should be paying close attention. A new era for the Catholic Church? If Luis Antonio Tagle steps into the role many believe Pope Francis quietly prepared him for, the effects won't just be felt inside Vatican walls. They'll be felt around the world. A Tagle-led church could mark a historic shift from a European-centered institution to a truly global faith community. One that speaks directly to growing populations in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. One that addresses real-world issues like climate change, migration, poverty, and social justice. Not just spiritual doctrine. As one commentator noted, this isn't just about religion. It's about redefining the Church's place in modern society. Under Tagle's leadership, we could see a church that embraces interfaith dialogue, champions human rights, and finally faces long-avoided questions about inclusion and equality. But such a transformation wouldn't just inspire hope. It would trigger controversy. Nations, political leaders, and traditionalists may push back against a church that dares to get involved in global issues beyond the pulpit. Could this have been Pope Francis' ultimate plan all along? To pass the torch to someone who would break down old barriers and make the Church relevant to a modern, diverse world? If so, then what was hidden inside that sealed mansion wasn't just a collection of papers. It was a blueprint for global change. Now, with the truth slowly emerging, one final question remains. What does the future hold? And is Tagle ready to face it? Let's bring it all together. What does the future hold? The mansion is sealed. The secrets are buried. For now. But the impact of what was found inside Pope Francis' residence is already shaking the foundations of the Church. The world watches in silence, waiting to see if Luis Antonio Tagle will step forward and fulfill the role hinted at in those hidden documents. Will he honor Pope Francis' vision? Or will the weight of tradition and the resistance within keep him from taking that leap? Tagle has yet to speak publicly about these revelations, but sometimes silence speaks louder than words. The Catholic Church now stands at a crossroads. One path leads back to the comfort of old ways. The other leads toward transformation, a future where faith meets the realities of the modern world. As one Vatican scholar said, this isn't just about a leader. It's about the soul of the Church. So, what happens next? Will Tagle rise as the leader Pope Francis quietly prepared him to be? Or will hidden forces keep those plans locked away forever? One thing is certain. What they found in Pope Francis' mansion changes everything. And this story? It's far from over. Stay tuned because history is being written as we speak.